Now, moving on, let's see what this particular lesson has in store for us. For Anne Gregory. Before we move on to the poem, let's know more about the poet of this poem. William Butler Yeats was an Irish nationalist. He is the poet of the poem. He was educated in London and Dublin and was interested in folklore and mythology. Folklore means certain traditional stories. These can also be represented in the form of songs. Mythology is a certain form of mystical writings. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1923. This is the author, or as we can say, the poet for this chapter. Let's now look into the theme of the poem. The poem highlights the temporary nature of beauty. Beauty is often used as a basis of judgment about the people whom we meet. But are there better ways to judge people? So, in this particular part, we get to know the theme of the poem, which tells us that beauty, in fact, is quite temporary as well, which in a way tells us that the way beauty is presented to us is very temporary. That is, it's not natural or real, as often it is the basis on which we judge people. However, this poem also makes us think that are there better or some other ways of judging people other than judging by looking at their beauty, which is often unnatural, unreal, and temporary. Let's move forward now. For Anne Gregory. Never shall a young man thrown into despair by those great honey-colored ramparts at your ear love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair. So, this particular part tells us that any young person or a young man should not be thrown into despair or a certain form of disillusionment by those great honey-colored ramparts at your ear. That is, these kind of hair that are yellow and honey-colored in nature. But I can get a hair dye and set such color there, brown or black or carrot, that young men in despair may love me for myself alone, and not my yellow hair. So, a hair dye are basically forms of artificial colors used to change the hair color. They come in different forms and colors of brown, black, and orange. So, the poet here says that she can change the color, that girls as well as boys can change the color of their hair to any of these colors and be able to not just be along with people who are in despair, as they may even like them for who they are and not in fact for their yellow hair, which tells us that when we come to know and love people and love each other, it's not the color of our hair or the color of our skin, or in fact the form of beauty that we take on, which is unnatural in nature, that should be the basis of being with people or of loving or liking them. In fact, it should be for the person who is themselves, for being the true self. Let's move forward. I heard an old religious man but yesternight declare that he had found a text to prove that only God, my dear, could love you for yourself alone and not your yellow hair. So, it is quite sarcastic here when the poet says that this is not the reality of the world, because he heard an old religious man some time back declare to found a written piece of text and a document which says that in fact there is nobody on earth who can love you for who you truly are except your God. So God is the only person who could love you for being yourself alone and not your yellow hair, which means that others and everyone around us will never love us for who we truly are and for being truly true to ourselves, but because of the artificial beauty that we adorn and take to, is what is appreciated and liked by others. William Butler Yeats. Let's now look into the explanation of the poem to know and understand better. The poem is a conversation. A conversation is a form of an interaction or a dialogue. So the poem is a form of an interaction between a young man and a young woman who are arguing over whether a man can love a woman for something apart from her physical beauty. So over here, there are two people who are fighting about the fact that is it possible for somebody to love the other person for who they truly are, or will they only love the person because of their physical beauty or what they outwardly look like. They're discussing whether it is truly possible for someone to be attracted or love someone truly apart and not because of how they look like or what they wear. The man in the conversation says that a religious man told him that only God and only God can love a woman for her soul and for who she truly is, which means that apart from God, there is nobody in the world who can love another person for being their true and honest selves, because everyone is only attracted as well as looks forward to somebody's beauty that is physical and outward in nature. Nobody is really in love with the person or who they truly are. The poem uses the symbol of yellow hair to refer to physical beauty in comparison to the invisible features that make someone beautiful. That is, the person's soul, personality, and for who they truly are. There are a few key terms that we have come across in the poem. Let's now look at them. Ramparts, the high, wide walls around a castle or fort. You can look at these walls around a castle or a fort to know that they are called as ramparts. There are a few questions that we must also address and discuss in order to completely understand the poem. Let's now look at the questions. Question number 1. What does the young man mean by great honey-colored ramparts at your ear? Why does he say that young men are thrown into despair by them? The answer to this question could be that the young man in the poem praises the great honey-colored hair of Anne. So, it's the honey-colored hair of Anne that is being talked about in the poem. Anne's hair have been called rampart, meaning a wall around a castle or a fort. It is called so because they act as a wall as they prevent young men from looking beyond those yellow hair and into her soul, personality, and who she really is. Her hair are so attractive that young men cannot look at anything else but her physical beauty and her beautiful hair. Anne's yellow hair are so pretty that young men hopelessly fall in love with her, without even realizing who she really is as a person. She is so pretty that everyone wants her, which cannot happen. Hence, they are thrown into a state of despair. Moving forward, question number 2. What color is the young woman's hair? What does she say she can change it to? Why would she want to do so? The answer to this question is that Anne's hair are yellow in color, like the color of honey. She says that she can change it to black, brown, and even carrot, that is orange in color. She means that she can change it to any color she wants. Anne says so because she says that the outer beauty is changeable and not permanent or real or even natural. She wants young men to look into her soul and who she truly is as a person and love her for her inner beauty, which cannot be shown or represented by the color of someone's hair or the clothes they wear or how they look like. In order to do so, Anne also needs to show them the superficiality of her external beauty, wherein external beauty is temporary in nature. It is also not natural. Let's now look into question number 3. Is it possible to separate the person himself or herself from how the person looks, sounds, walks, and so on? Think of how you or a friend or a member of your family has changed over the years. Has your relationship also changed? In what way? So, I request that you should try and attempt this answer on your own and try to understand whether is it truly possible to create a distinction or differentiate and separate between the person who they really are and from what they look like. That is, can we differentiate a person's personality and their soul from what they look like or what they wear? Now, after answering this, also think about yourself or a friend or a family member who has changed over the years in terms of how they look like and in also terms of how they are as a person. Now think about whether your relationship with that person has changed, and if it has changed, in what way. Let's now go through a quick revision to retain and help ourselves to better understand the chapter. Let's now revise. The poem depicts the arguments between a man and a woman about the possibility of love that does not depend on physical beauty alone, but recognizes about other virtues like that of their soul and personality, or for somebody for who they truly are. The woman's yellow hair is used as a symbol that represents outer beauty that is not real in nature. According to the male speaker in the poem, it is only and only God who can love women only for themselves. That's all for now. I hope that the poem came across in a comprehensible and a clear manner. Thank you.